Welcome to Relationships and Astrology, and I'm Margaret Gray in Dublin, Ireland.
And I'm Armand Diaz in New York.
And today we're talking about the full moon in Cancer on January 12th. And this is our first full moon of the year, of course. So it's quite an important moon. It sort of sets the tone really for the year ahead. What are your initial thoughts, Armand?
Well, full moons can manifest like any astrological symbol in many ways, and I'm hoping this one does. I think that it's potentially going to be, the full moon lunacy will be quite a thing at this time. The moon is square to Jupiter and Uranus, and so we have a grand square, grand cross in the sky, and I think that it's liable to be a tense one.
It is, isn't it? It's so interesting because, of course, full moons, just by their nature, are really oppositions. So they're kind of opposing each other. And I think for ourselves, within ourselves, it's really parts of ourselves that are in opposition. And it's almost like the external part of ourselves that's out in the world represented by the sun, and the more private, emotional part of us represented by the moon. And so part of the job usually at full moon is how to integrate those two sides. And I think that's why it's often connected to high emotions, because the sun highlights our emotions. And this one is a little different because, as you said, of this grand cross in the sky. So that not only do we have the opposition, but we also have two other planets, which are fairly big ones. Jupiter, which enlarges everything, and then Uranus in Aries, which is pulling us into something new. So I would imagine there's going to be a little bit of tension between those, four corners, because grand crosses, literally like a cross, keep pulling us in all the four directions. Once we appease one side, so if we kind of keep the sun in Capricorn happy, then the next part, the Jupiter wants attention, and so on. Plus, of course, the sun is right next to Pluto. So that's very, very powerful in itself. So it's almost like there's the sun, Pluto, and the Uranus, which are the most powerful bits of that grand cross.
And, the moon is about the inner. The full moon, part of the reason we have the lunacy, is the stuff that likes to be sort of hidden winds up being exposed. And I think especially full moons in water signs, Scorpio by all means, but I think in any water sign, it's hard. Cancer is not a sign that really likes to be overly exposed, and the moon in Cancer it doesn't really like to be, out there and be seen quite so much. And I think that what we're liable to see with this grand cross energy is that, security needs. That's always a thing, with the Cancer moon. Security needs are liable to be very, very high.
I so agree. I think it's really going to come to the surface. And so there's that tension between those security needs, as you say, and also the Uranus in Aries, which is wanting something new, and the opposing sun Pluto, which is more about kind of structure. But the interesting thing is that Capricorn is also quite private. So we've got both this opposition really that isn't particularly public, and yet it's kind of pulled out into the public arena with the Jupiter. And also there's quite a bit going on with the Saturn Mercury that are together in Sagittarius. So it really feels like a time where maybe some truths are going to come to light, maybe some secrets, particularly in relationships. And of course, intimacy really is kind of doesn't do well at all with secrets. So it might be quite a good thing in the long term that secrets come to light, but it might feel a little uncomfortable if they kind of suddenly come to the surface with the full moon.
And again, with the sun Uranus square just a little bit beforehand, this is essentially a day before the full moon, we're liable to be feeling rather independent. There's this kind of like, hey, I'm doing my thing. And then when the moon goes into Cancer, then it becomes like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Well, what about my security needs? What about our relationship? You're still there for me, aren't you? So there may be a little bit of this sort of push-pull that we feel like I kind of want to do my own thing, but hey, wait, don't go anywhere. So I think that might be a conflict that a lot of people feel.
That's a really good point. And also that, you know, often I think Capricorn and Cancer are considered the parental kind of signs in terms of, you know, what we traditionally assign to father and mother, which are, of course, a little bit old fashioned, but there is that part within us, those archetypes, the parental archetypes, whichever side we assign to them, that I think may also come to the surface. And that may play out a little bit in relationships. It's like, do we project one side onto the other, wanting, you know, our significant other to be our parent, to either mother us, you know, if we don't, if we haven't got to hand those self-nurturing skills, or to father us, you know, to set the boundaries, to be the container, to ground us, all those things that traditionally we've assigned. So I think some of those dynamics may also come to the surface with this full moon.
And then with Uranus, Jupiter on the other axis, we set up those projections and then we say, but no. Let's set them up and knock them right down again and say, no, 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 actually, we don't want to do that. And that could be a little bit of a thing with your partner, when it's kind of like, you know, you say, hey, you know, play this role for me. And then you get a little resentful that they're doing it.
That's so true. That really can be pretty uncomfortable. You know, I think one of the things with Moon in Cancer, mostly, in fact, Moon in Water generally, is that the creative arts act as a container. So I think that might really help during this time, doing something together, or doing something separately, whether it's literally painting or art or writing or music or something like that. I think the other thing, of course, you know, we often say this, but really to spend some time in nature, because again, it's a container, it's a natural container, particularly in, you know, somewhere green, and to communicate. I think this is very important, because the tendency with Moon and Water is sometimes not to communicate feelings, or because, of course, this time, this Moon in Water is an aspect to all these Pisces planets, the Pisces stellium, there might be a sense of avoidance, or trying to kind of escapism through substances or addictions, whether it's work, whether it's, you know, a substance, whether it's a person. So how to really stay grounded and present in the moment.
Which is hard at a full moon. You know, it's a time when things come to light, but it's not the most conscious time. It's usually, you know, you're already on the ride. You know, you've already made your decisions. You've already sort of taken the steps that you can take, and now you see how things play out. And it's hard to act. I think that the importance of staying grounded is that we don't react.
Yes, that is so very important. And particularly for anybody who's got their sun or moon or personal planets or angles, anywhere between, really, I would say about 17 degrees to about 23 degrees, particularly Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, and Libra. But also because there's so much going on in Pisces, and Chiron is in Pisces, I would say Pisces and Sagittarius as well, that some of these themes are more likely to resonate with you, or with your partner, or with anybody, you know, close to you, if they have planets at those degrees this particular month.
That's certainly the case.
So until the next new moon next month, I hope you all enjoy this full moon in Cancer and nurture yourselves. It's really a time for self-nurturing.
It is. Take care, Margaret.
Bye-bye, Armand.